Hi everyone, welcome to Eve Talks It All, part of the TV Socialites Podcast Network. Here you will find the visual side of this podcast where I will be taking more of a video essay-esque type approach to topics I want to talk about in a more general sense, and then on the audio side, what you'll find for the most part will be some girly chatters followed by opinions and a bit of a wish fulfillment when it comes to certain storylines. My other creative half, Charlie, is currently doing her main podcast, Did You Miss Me? A Pretty Little Buffy pod, where she's talking about Pretty Little Liars and Buffy the Vampire Slayer seasons 1 concurrently, and she's also doing a little bit of a side project monthly that's called Always and Forever Stars Hollow, where she talks about One Tree Hill and Girl More Girls. That one is getting up and running now, so I join her where I can, when I can, on some of these, and she's going to do the same on my side. So now that the admin keeping is out of the way, what are we talking about today? So today we are going to be looking at Kelly Taylor from the original Beverly Hills 90210, portrayed by Jenny Garth, the show that aired from 1990 to 2000, created by Aaron Spelling. I already made a video talking about the Brenda, Dylan, and Kelly love triangle, but I realized that I still have something to say, and that is Kelly is definitely the OG broken bird trope in terms of the popular media. She's been through it all. I always say that Kelly Taylor walked so Peyton Sawyer, Marissa Cooper, and Elena Gilbert can run. And I'm sure there are more characters that I'm forgetting, but she's really been through so much. She has been in the show its whole run, and every season there is something, and it begs the question, does consistent trauma equal character development and character growth, or is the constant dramatic tension from said traumatic events substitute for having to actually develop her personality? And I already know the answer to that, but I'm going to take you on my thought process as I'm talking through the show, again in chronological order, just to keep it simple, and we'll figure it out together. And I'm being candid that I'm going to be using some wiki pages to refresh my facts on what event is in a certain episode, because I know what happens, but I need to just refresh myself on the factual bits so that I can share my opinions with you, because I'm not going to rewatch 10 seasons worth of television for half an hour to 40 minutes worth of content, because that's not a productive use of anyone's time. But I remember enough to be able to talk about it. I just need to remember, oh, this is the episode that this happened exactly, just so that I don't mix it up. So without any further ado, let's talk about Kelly Taylor. So when Kelly Taylor is introduced in the show, she is immediately an antithesis of Brenda Walsh, played by Shannon Doherty, whereas Brenda is a bit of a meek, soft-spoken, fish out of the water girl. Kelly's more of a rich bitch stereotype. She definitely rules the school with the iron fist. She is very cautious about her social status, who she's seen with, who she hangs out with. Her boyfriend is, of course, a fellow popular person, well respected within their circles. She is not afraid to be a bit bitchy, to be a bit standoffish with people. She's not afraid to use them based on her agenda to keep her status, to get ahead and whatnot. She only seems to really have one person before Brenda who hangs out with her all the time out of girls who she sees as worthy enough to be her best friend, and that is Donna. And I mean, I'm definitely not making a video about Donna because I don't have enough to say about her character, but any thoughts that I have of her will probably seep into when I'm talking about other stuff related to the show. So when the show starts, as I said, we immediately get introduced to Brenda walking into the school on her first day and discovering these characters, and that is when we meet Kelly, who invites Brenda to sit with her purely so that she doesn't have to sit next to bit of a stoner reject clique looking dude. And she kind of, I think she sees Brenda as a bit of a project, kind of mixed with things that haven't even been out at that point, but things that we can use to refer ourselves to realize the correlations here. So it kind of almost reminds me of a mix of Cher from Clueless and Regina George from Mean Girls, where she kind of sees Brenda as someone who she can mold to be part of her clique, because obviously Brenda is attractive, seems to have a nice personality anyway, friendly, nice, and also clueless enough to be subjected to Kelly's way of ruling the school and to be basically molded into the perfect little package. Even though it's definitely not Mean Girls, it's definitely not Gossip Girl in that sense, but you do get the vibe that if you piss off Kelly Taylor, you're not going to be on anyone's golden invite list to any type of social gathering. So, you know, she really wants to make an impression on people, and in a way Brenda is perfect because she knows absolutely nothing about anyone. She's literally a fish out of the water, and it suits Kelly's narrative. She can be whoever she wants to be in front of Brenda, and chances are she won't know any better. So in a sense of Kelly and where she stands with the show, it is actually very clear when she becomes the main character, and in seasons 1 and 2 she definitely plays more of a supporting role. She is the best friend to Brenda's main character, and despite that, we of course still get glimpses of who she is and why she acts the way that she does. So when it comes to season 1, we have a few pivotal events that showcase her character, and again, what we come to and why I'm making this argument to begin with is that both of these main events that I would class as main events of season 1, they come from trauma of things that happened to her or things that happened to her family around her that she has to deal with, and they're the events that form how Kelly acts. And again, this is where the question is starting to form. Does trauma equal character development? And the first thing happens in episode 7, where the girls are inviting their moms to be part of this event. And I don't remember the exact details of what this event is, but in this episode, Kelly's mom, she is acting in a very embarrassing manner because she's struggling with drug and alcohol addiction, and she was able to hide it now. And it's not very clear whether Kelly had an idea or not, but in this episode, it's where she can no longer deny it. And it's especially blown up out in the open because she watches Brenda with her mom Cindy be this perfect mother-daughter duo, and then she gets her mom, and it's almost like, why can't this be me? And it really affects her. And again, this is the first proper insight into why she could act the way that she does, because psychologically we know that a lot of people who feel the need to be the leaders or to feel the need to stand out, especially at school, people who feel the need to put others down for any reason, a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time it is because they don't get attention at home, because they struggle with stuff at home. And this is definitely the case here. And Kelly's mother's, Jackie's, substance abuse storyline is something that actually goes as far as being mentioned in the reboot 90210 that I've not talked about yet, but it is coming. So it is a very long-running storyline, even though Jackie is not much of a character in the show as far as the episode count that she appears in. So as far as this goes, it is definitely a seed of Kelly doesn't have a nice home life, and she can try to run away from it or hide from it as much as she wants, but this is what she's living with. Her mom is an addict, and a lot of the decisions that her mom makes are with that addiction in mind and not actually putting her daughter first or thinking about her all that much. And then we have another pivotal event where we find out that Kelly's first sexual experience was actually really traumatic. And it is in the episode that has always been one of my personal favorites, episode 13 of season 1, Slumber Party, where all the girls, so you have all the main girls, Kelly, Brenda, Donna, and Andrea, who go to Brenda's house to have the slumber party. And what happens is that Kelly actually invites this other girl who is not part of the main cast or the friend group. She's only there in that one episode, I'm pretty sure. I might be wrong, but she's definitely not like even a recurring character. She's just there basically to stir shit up, because she is even meaner than Kelly is when she tries to be horrible. She spends the whole evening trying to cause the girls to have an argument with each other. She's trying to, again, stir the pot, stir shit up, and she seems to be enjoying it. She's one of those people who love drama and causing it. And basically what happens is the girls play a game where they go around. I forgot if it's Never Have I Ever or Truth or Dare, but they have this game where secrets start coming out. Oh, it was skeletons in the closet. I remembered on the spot. It's they have to tell a secret to each other that no one knows. And Kelly is asked by this girl who's stirring shit about her first sexual experience. And Kelly starts talking about her first time with Steve and how they nearly got caught by his parents, and it was like really awkward but also really goofy. And this girl knows that she is not telling the truth, and she forces Kelly to tell the truth for the sake of the game. And then we get a really well acted scene by Jenny where she is the focus of the screen, and we get occasional flashes to the other girls, but for the most part she has a monologue describing her actual first time. And it's really heartbreaking because she went out with this guy who she crushed on for a while, but didn't actually really know him. They just ran in similar social circles. And this guy assaulted her, but it was a date rape situation where she didn't even recognize that she was assaulted until way after the fact, because it was more so that she did want to do it with him, but not in the situation that they were in, because the way she talks about how he kept saying that she wants it, and they just did it on the ground, no blanket, nothing, and then he just took her in the car, drove her home, and just never spoke to her after the fact. I mean...
But of course, when we get there, all he wants to do is have sex. He kept saying, "Come on, Kel. I know you want it. I know you want it, Kelly."
It's a horrible thing to have as your first sexual encounter. I can't even imagine that. So it's definitely another insight into who Kelly is and how she sees people and how she sees guys, and how she's been burned by these experiences already. And we're barely halfway into season 1, because this incident is what led to her being perceived as promiscuous, because prior to dating Steve, she did have a bit of a history, and we know, especially in the 90s purity culture, that was definitely looked down upon. And as far as this goes, these are kind of the main events of Kelly, and we're also still shown that she, despite all of that she's going through, fundamentally she's a bit emotionally stunted and not that nice of a person. And again, it kind of makes you think, well, going through something like that, it obviously would turn you a bit mean and a bit jaded, I guess. But for starters, for example, I mean, I guess that's not super malicious in itself, but in a way, when Brenda wants to dye her hair blonde to impress Dylan in episode 8, she encourages her to do it at home and does it for her, when anyone who knows anything about hair care would know that you can't turn like full-on dark chestnutty, auburny brown color into platinum blonde at home in one session. It's not gonna happen, and she almost seemed a bit, I don't know if it's ever confirmed that she did it on purpose, but it's not great, is it? And then actually in that same episode of the slumber party, after Brenda shares her story, Kelly comes clean that she tried to ask Dylan out after him and Brenda started dating, or it was that in that awkward position where nothing was confirmed, but she was still trying to get her shot in, and it immediately sets that precedent where it's like, you've been through a lot, but you're still acting out against the few people who actually could see the real you and who actually care about you, and that's not great. And then we also see at the end of season 1 where she has her spring dance, it was called, where she wanted to ask out Brandon, Brenda's brother, and she got really offended because she got friend-zoned by him, basically. He said, because you're such good friends with Brenda, I see you as a little sister, and she is perplexed by that because she's not used to being told no by guys or by anyone really, because obviously she gets a lot of what she wants, and it is a bit sad when you see that that's her big revelation of the season, being turned down by a guy, and it's a bit, you know, obviously it's not the end for those two, but you also have that whole thing where she doesn't want to wear a different dress, even though Brenda wants this dress. That's like the whole thing where they wear the same dress to the prom. And just to backtrack before I forget about it, the episode where Brenda finds a lump in her breast and thinks she might have breast cancer like her aunt did, Kelly's very not supportive, but it's the sort of thing where I could give her a pass for being a bit stunted on how to deal with that, because I can't imagine many teenagers having that much empathy to even grasp what cancer means and what all of that could entail. So, you know, it's a whole other thing. But yeah, as I mentioned, this is definitely the season where Kelly still, her main purpose is to be Brenda's best friend, and therefore a lot of the conflict that I mentioned comes out from her interacting with Brenda in some way, and her traumas are revealed more from being around Brenda and stuff coming out, rather than her having many of storylines on her own accord. Season 2, a lot of Kelly's plot lines, like I said, she's still a bit more of a supporting role. She is faced with the fact that Jackie wants to marry, I'll just double check the character's name. She wants to marry Mel, who is David's father. David is, he starts as a bit of a loser, but then gets integrated into the main group, arguably because of the fact that he's going to be Kelly's stepbrother. And of course that goes down as well as you think he would, but this is kind of not surprising, of course, when adults get married and they have teenage children. There's going to be friction, especially if these kids are used to being the only children in the household. So, of course, I can't really fault her much for this, and it provides her with a bit more substance in seeing how she interacts with other people who aren't just her friends or guys. So that is always good, and for the moment it's nice to see her interact with her mother, who is clean and who is trying to make amends for everything she's done as an adult. But as far as the second season goes, again, Kelly is involved with an older guy because, of course, for some reason, teen dramas, even back in the day, even the very first one, decided, you know what, let's have a minor 17-year-old hook up with someone who's in their 20s, because that's so sexy. But, you know, this is a whole other conversation, although you could argue that it immediately shows that Kelly is willing to seek validation in all the places that she can find it, which is a whole other thing. You know, you could argue that it's definitely her mother's behavior that causes her to look for validation in men and absence of a father figure, and now obviously that there are changes in the family, she's trying to adapt by seeking something familiar, which is again validation from guys. And This storyline with her dating this older guy, Jake, is actually serving its whole other purpose because it's launching the spin-off of this show, not the reboot that aired in 2008, but a spin-off show that aired roughly at the same time called Melrose Place. And actually, I've not seen that one, so I can't vouch for what happens, but I kept saying I should try it, and then I was like, wait, has it been too much time? Is it worth the risk? What if I hate it and then it tarnishes my thoughts on this show? But you know what? Maybe if one day I feel like it, I will watch it. But at the moment, it's not a priority. So anyway, what I'm getting at, basically, at least it's the bare fucking minimum. But at the very least, Jake, he draws a boundary that you're too young and you are a nice person and I would love to hang out with you as friends, but it's Kelly who keeps pushing the romantic interest to the point where he has to fake cheating on her. And immediately I'm thinking, well, okay, again, bare minimum. You keep pushing her romantic advances off, but at the same time, my dude, why are you hanging out around 17-year-olds if you're 20-something? Again, find friends your own age. Like, I'm sorry, but that's a whole other thing. And again, she, apart from these storylines, which to be fair, I mean, they take up their own space, she's just trotting along through season 2, I would argue. But of course, we can't have a season without some kind of Kelly-related trauma again. And this time it's sexual assault that thankfully doesn't lead to rape, but it is during episode 13 of season 2, which is called Halloween. And again, it's a Halloween special, and Kelly's wearing quite a revealing dress that invites lots of comments from people. And this guy corners her in one of the bedrooms of the house that the party's at and tries to rape her. And thankfully it gets stopped when Donna and Brenda come into the room, and at first they think that it's all consensual from afar, but then Kelly starts screaming for her friends, and it immediately gets handled. And we even get some commentary about how the fact that Kelly's dressed that way doesn't mean that she's inviting random guys to have sex with her, and she's allowed to wear what she wants, which again, well, I'd love to say that in 2026 this discussion is not happening anymore, but well, that is a whole other can of worms. However, as you can see, lots of things that happen to Kelly are of sexual nature when it comes to the traumatic stuff she goes through, and we're not even done with that yet, unfortunately. But it's very telling that the writers are pushing what is going to become their main female character, because let's not forget, Kelly is one of the only 2 female characters, apart from Donna, in the entire show that stays throughout the entire run of 10 seasons. So for all effects and purposes, she becomes the main female character in the face of the show. And you keep putting your main female character into all sorts of sexual trauma, assault scenarios to the point where it definitely seems deliberate. But I'll leave that for now, and we'll get on to season 3. So I have spoken a lot about what Kelly does in season 3 in my video where I discuss the love triangle between her, Dylan, and Brenda. So I'm not going to repeat myself here, but I'm just going to say what I think about the whole shebang from Kelly's character POV. So obviously at this point, we are very established with Kelly's character, and we can see that this love triangle and all of the other things keep pushing her into more of a forefront, so she's on the same level as Brenda in terms of who's the main girl of the show. And we see, you know, she has all the family baggage, she has all this new family baggage, the fact that Jackie, her mother, gave birth to a daughter, so she's no longer the baby of the family, the daughter, golden child, whatever you want to call it. She now has to look after her sister and all that. You know, there's lots of changes, and we also see her past traumas when it comes to guys as well. And we definitely can understand where her behavior stems from. However, it doesn't cause her character to develop in certain ways that you might consider more healthy. Because while Kelly's trajectory with the whole love triangle thing and going after Dylan and being with him, even though technically he's still with her best friend, it makes sense for her character, but it's not the trajectory that is flattering to her character, if I may say. And it is frustrating to watch from her character's POV, although a lot of people argued that it made for good television. You know how I feel about that love triangle. I made it very clear. But as far as things go, in terms of her character, again, it is hard to sympathize with a character who seeks male validation to such a level that she is willing to sabotage the relationship with her best friend and her boyfriend just to feel like someone loves her or desires her. And slice it however you like, it's not a good look on her. And despite who you ship Dylan with or no one, it's not a good start for their relationship. And the fact that she seems to be completely fine with it, again, it seems like you should be working on yourself, not falling head over heels for some guy. But you know, that's a whole other thing when it comes to that triangle, as I said. But again, it is hard to root for her. The point I was gonna get to saying that, so I don't keep repeating myself, is it almost, this early on in the show, we're almost guilted into not hating her because of these actions, because, oh look, but she's been through this, oh look, her family's doing this, look, she's been assaulted, and you know, we get into this headspace where we think, wait, are we allowed to dislike her for making these choices when she's been through so much? And my answer is, well, for the sake of saying this is a fictional character and we're talking about a TV show, yes, we're allowed to dislike her and the choices that she makes and admit that these choices are harmful to the people around her, and she's willingly making these choices that she knows will cause more harm for her own validation and her own benefit. We're allowed to say that she is not a good person despite the trauma that she's been through. And I think that's okay. Obviously, in real life, we have to be sensitive because obviously those are real people who went through real trauma. But even so, you could argue in real life as well, the same things could apply. Having traumatic events happen to you doesn't automatically give you the monopoly to act however you want and wreck someone else's life just because you've been through something that makes you feel like hell. If that were the case, the world would be anarchy even more than it already is. So we are at the point of season 3 where, as I spoke about in my previous video, Kelly won. She has the guy, she has that validation. Is she happy? No. And I think that's also an important lesson and an important trait of her character, that even when things are going right for her, she still finds something to be unhappy about. And it stems from some deep personal issues that a man cannot fix. Who could have thought? This is why therapy exists. But anyway, so we have a segment where Kelly actually has an episode of anorexia. And I'm hoping I'm phrasing this correctly, but essentially what happens is that she gets lots of pressure from herself. Like, everyone tells her that she's amazing and looks so beautiful, and she literally gets crowned the most beautiful girl of the class. And in season's 1 episode, the spring dance episode, she got crowned as the spring queen, whatever it was. And it's almost like those compliments, instead of reveling in them, they build this pressure for her to look even better, even thinner, even more beautiful. And she starts eating these, not eating, that's the point, she starts taking these diet pills. And they're described as these over-the-counter appetite suppressants. But there's, of course, the whole label thing. You have to use them as part of a substantial diet and exercise. All the diet products have this wording, and that's for a reason, because, well, a lot of the time I'm convinced that they actually don't do shit. At least those, over-the-counter tablets, if you're actually taking medication, then prescribed to you by a doctor, that's a whole other story. But if you can get something for $1, is it really going to do much? Anyway, not the point here. So what happens is that she starts substituting those tablets for food. And it's actually at her 18th birthday party where she passes out because of this.
Oh my God, Kelly! Brandon, Nat, call 911! Kelly. Oh my God, Kelly, come on.
Starvation, because she's barely been eating for weeks. And it's actually Brenda who discovers her and who speaks to her at the hospital, and that seems to be the time where their friendship starts rekindling a little bit. It's never the same as before, mind you, but she finally seems to sort of start realizing that she already has so much and she's still looking for things that she doesn't have. And obviously it's a slippery slope. Obviously someone could have the biggest amount of money, fame, whatever, and they could still have illnesses, they could still have depression, they could still have an eating disorder. So that's not to deny that, but again, it is purely from storytelling perspective. It just seems like it was another thing that was tacked on to Kelly's character, because we couldn't go a season without her having some kind of again, traumatic event. And it really grates when you see her getting everything at the expense of other characters, at the expense of Brenda's happiness and her feelings, at the expense of everyone, the whole friend group feeling all weird and clunky. She should be on cloud 9, and yet she is miserable. So, again, that is a very big thing for Kelly's character. She spends a lot of her time sulking in misery, and it's not always the most appealing thing, because a lot of the time that trauma and that misery is all that she has. So it was episode 24 that she was hospitalized during this eating disorder, and for the rest of season 3 she mainly just goes to prom and helps Donna after her drunk incident where she's caught by the principal drunk, and the whole Donna Martin graduates thing, which is probably one of the more memorable and iconic scenes from the show, where the whole senior class start chanting at the school as a protest because the principal tries to block Donna from graduating school because she was caught drunk at prom. And she graduates school, reunites with her father at said graduation for the first time in years. So there's that. And then we head into the university years. So obviously, with, again, this being Shannon Doherty's last season, Kelly's getting even more screen time. And essentially what we have is her trying to adapt to university life. I mean, from my recollection, because I definitely remember the high school seasons best, but from my recollection, we definitely do get parties, we get certain extracurricular activities, we even get sometimes them in class. So Kelly actually majors in psychology, which I find extremely ironic, but okay, you do you, girl. And she actually cares about her studies, she puts time in to do the work, but of course she also definitely partays. And you could argue that her getting out there, meeting new people, that's what university/college, wherever you're at, is all about. Broadening your horizons, growing up as a person, seeing what you can be, who you can be. And it seems to be going pretty well. She actually takes on some, not necessarily activism, but she is willing to open up about her past trauma, about her date rape, about her assault, for the sake of protecting Steve, who's accused by this girl of assault. And she seems to almost kind of also use that for good, to protect her friend, but also to come to terms with it a bit. And of course, that is really great for her character. It seemed like she actually took time to develop the friendships within her circle even more. She became better friends with her ex Steve and Andrea. When she found out that she was pregnant, Kelly was actually one of the first people she went to, and she was really supportive of her. And yet we still have the whole Dylan and Brenda thing, and I already discussed it in my previous video, but to sum that up, it's definitely where Kelly's still nastier and insecure side comes out, because as I said, Kelly and Brenda's friendship was never the same, at least in the original show. Kelly has Dylan, but she's still so insecure that she doesn't like them spending time together, which, well, you could argue maybe that was warranted, considering that Dylan was ready to get back together with Brenda pretty much right after she returned from Minnesota, after her failed attempt to go to college there. So maybe it was warranted a bit, but a lot of her screen time with Dylan in season 4 was actually really frustrating, because they would argue, they would have sex, they would make up, and all of that. It's just a cycle, and their communication was dog shit. I already expressed my feelings to that. And again, she was almost hostile to Brenda at some points. There was that whole thing where Brenda tried to free some bunnies from the lab and got arrested, and she was the one who basically told the group not to talk to her in case she could incriminate them and ruin their university records as well, which, I mean, it's a whole situation, but again, it's the fact that Kelly feels that she has the power to tell that to people. It's not great. She also started, I don't remember exactly if she started the rumor, but she definitely at least perpetuated in the rumor that Brenda slept with her professor for a better grade in her theater class, which is, again, she might be developing friendships outside of the circle, and she might be developing the friendships with people like Steve and Andrea, however you want to pronounce it, within the circle, but she is not being a good friend to Brenda at all, and obviously, again, that stems from the fact that she's insecure, but at the same time, you got the guy, he chose you, and now you seem unhappy to be with him, and you seem to still resent your best friend who you took him from. Again, you can't take people, but you get what I mean. It's, again, it's not a good look, and she starts gravitating towards Brandon again. She starts being his date for school-themed events, and they start sort of actually seeing each other as romantic partners, and they get together. After her and Dylan end things, so that's great at least. It's her and Brandon's relationship is a whole other thing. Obviously, it's there for pretty much the rest of Jason Priestley's time on the show in some capacity, so we'll get to that. But what's actually interesting in this season is that it's the only season where Kelly doesn't have some sort of a major traumatic event. It's just fallout from the previous seasons, acknowledging certain things. And again, it's interesting, but also we're not even halfway through the show, guys. So plenty more where this came from, regrettably, because, well, how much shit can one person go through? Season 5 is when the show really starts diving into the soap opera-ness, and you'll see why. So Kelly makes friends with Claire, who moves into the beach house that her and Donna live in, but also she clashes with Valerie, who is living with the Walshes now that Brenda is in London. Shannon Doherty obviously left the show by this point, and again, she can be quite nasty to Valerie. Not that it's not warranted, because Valerie is a little bit of a troublemaker, because when she comes on for her first episode, season 5 premiere, we're meant to think she's another Brenda, super sweet, super nice, and then the episode ends with her rolling a joint and shit-talking the entire group. And obviously Valerie immediately hooks up with Dylan, who's going through a really rough time with his family stuff. So obviously Kelly immediately sees that as, we ain't gonna be friends, this ain't gonna happen, and they spend so much time bickering. And again, she's not afraid to really be nasty when she wants to, which it's something that never really goes away for her. As far as her love life in season 5 goes, so she is with Brandon, but she is still entangled with Dylan emotionally, because she still does have feelings for him, because, you know, love triangles everywhere. This show has so many of them, and just because I only talk about one mainly, it's the one that is that left the deepest effect on me. Doesn't mean that I don't have opinions on other ones. So obviously when it comes to this one, for me, I think that Kelly and Brandon, they definitely belong together more than Kelly and Dylan. I think that they balance each other out more, not just because Brandon is Brenda's brother and they have this sort of similar temperament, but it's just a bit, I think they complement each other, and there's less trauma bonding than it was with her and Dylan. But of course, she's shown to be there for Dylan, who's going through a relapse in his drugs and alcohol with his family stuff, that he was conned out of his money and everything. So that's a whole thing here, but just a part of what happens to her in the season. So, you know, we're back to the seasonal traumas. So Kelly's at this rave party and she ends up trapped in the building and gets severe burns on her body. Basically, she gets these burns and they hurt her self-esteem because, as we know from the previous seasons, she values her looks, and a lot of the time she thinks that's what people see when they see her. They see her body and her beauty and her everything. And obviously having burns on her body, it's gonna have an effect. So, in a true soap opera fashion, she ends up entangling herself in a cult after that. Yep. So technically 2 traumatic events in one season. We gotta compensate for season 4 having none, right? So, she gets involved in this cult, and the leader is a psychology professor, an abnormal psychology professor at the university she's going to, California University, I should say. And he tries to isolate her from everyone in her life, and it takes a while for her to snap out of it. One victim of this cult has to show her scars from a group suicide attempt, apparently, to get her to quit. And the season ends with her finally seeming to gain some mental clarity of what she wants, because both Dylan and Brandon confess their feelings to her and ask her to choose, and she chooses neither of them. So that whole, Gossip Girl fans will know, the whole Serena I choose me moment with Dan and Nate, that was basically copied from this moment. Almost like, not word for word I should say, but definitely in the way it was framed and the way that, yeah, the whole season escalated towards that.
Brandon, I can't accept this. Wait. Please. Dylan, have a nice trip. I can't go with you. Not this time. I've made my choice, and I choose me.
So, again, you could argue that this is actually good development for Kelly to finally realize that a relationship can't fix her issues. Obviously, the fact that she was so... a fire is a horrible thing, but the fact that she was so wrapped up in the fact that she has these burns, that she joined a literal cult. Again, you know, she has a lot of things that she needs to work out, and relationship is the last place that she should be in, which leaves you a bit hopeful. Maybe she'll actually realize this, but what do we have in season 6? Another relationship that gets her into another trauma. Of course, we can't give this girl a break, can we? So again, we have a bit of a double meat sandwich in season 6, because these writers just love torturing Kelly Taylor. So in season 6, we have Kelly dating this guy Colin, who is a struggling artist, and in a true struggling artist negative stereotype, he's addicted to cocaine, and eventually he gets Kelly addicted on said cocaine as well, because, well, that just seems to be the way. And again, it's the case of they can't seem to not give her some kind of a love interest just as much as they can't seem to not give her horrible traumatic events. So we have her getting addicted to cocaine, and obviously we know how addicts can be. She starts becoming really nasty to everyone around her as she wants her next fix, and it is again frustrating to watch. And it should be also mentioned that the catalyst for Kelly getting hooked on the cocaine is actually her biological father being a no-show in her life after she tried to rekindle the relationship. And again, we see the pattern one way or another. Kelly, she lets men and what they do and don't do for her drive all of the decisions in her life, where she literally gets in such a low place because of this continuous disappointment with her father that she gets addicted to drugs, and obviously this relationship is no good for her. You get what I mean. It's very frustrating because, girl, you need therapy, but at the same time, you would probably get the same therapist that Effie Stoneham gets in Skins. And we don't want that. So, eventually goes to rehab and breaks it off with this Colin guy, but that's not the end of him because he gets involved with Valerie. But of course she gets attached to a man in rehab, and she starts dating this random guy that they don't last long, but it's right after she leaves rehab, so immediately it's like, girl, please work on yourself for the love of God. But then again, we throw her, before she can even process what happened with this trauma, we throw her into the next one, because this woman, roommate in rehab, she gets too attached to her and actually tries to do murder-suicide with carbon monoxide with Kelly in the car. And again, what the fuck? We get all of this happen in such succession where she literally has no time to breathe or reflect to how she even got to this place. And she is still being so flippant with her emotions around other people. She doesn't recognize people's true intentions. Again, in a way, she kind of is wandering around like a lost child with all of these things happening to her, which again, I guess it makes sense considering all the daddy issues. But yeah, it's not great. And the season 6 ends with her and Brandon hinting that they're probably going to get back together because Dylan is out of the show until season 9 and he's reunited in London with Brenda. So of course she has to have a man. And I know I'm coming across as a bit shamey, but you get what I mean. It's just it's frustrating. Give her some time. I get TV, entertainment, she needs a love interest, but at the same time it's like, oh my god. But yeah, then we're at season 7, which is the last year of university, although as the time goes on, you get less and less of them actually studying and working towards a degree, and it's more just a vessel for more drama. So what happens to her in season 7? What is our girly? So season 7, again, we got a double entree. Gotta love it, right? So it's their senior year, like I said, and Kelly is focused on trying to be happy, whatever that means. So of course she dates a man and then another while still pining for Brandon. And one of these guys she only goes out with to spy Valerie because of course they're still, like I said, they never really reach a point where they get along like friends. I think they reach a point where they sort of tolerate each other a little bit, but even then it's like, meh. So she does that just to spy her, which is childish. And again, it's not like Valerie doesn't deserve that attitude per se, but they're both just as bad as each other. But that's what I mean. Their pettiness and their shallowness just sort of bounces off on each other. They really bring out their worst traits. And obviously the whole season, like I said, Kelly's carrying the torch for Brandon, and they do get back together. And it seems to finally be it for them after what was 3 seasons of a Will They Won't They, and the things that happened to her this season, so we have an AIDS scare because Kelly is volunteering with AIDS patients and she spends time bonding with one of them, and they're cutting fruit, I think, and she happens to touch the hands of the guy that she is doing this with, who is HIV positive, has AIDS, and of course she is terrified that she caught it, and deals with some stigma at the time about the condition as well. But it's just yet another, it's such a random thing to add. It didn't seem that necessary, but then again it's another, oh look, this is happening to Kelly right now. Ooh. But the real kicker is that when, like, at the very end of season 7, Kelly finds out that she's pregnant. However, she suffers a miscarriage and finds out that she might never be able to carry a baby fully to term in true soap opera style. In which case it's like, oh my god, what is going on right now? Like, I'm losing my professionalism because as I'm reminding myself of all these things that happened, I think, oh my Jesus, this can't just be one person's storylines. And yet, we are here. So, as I mentioned, we do get some actual positive character work for Kelly with the, again, her working at the AIDS hospice. And that has to somehow get clouded by this incident. They couldn't just let her develop some relationships with these people and develop as a person and discover new perspectives on life and all that without it being traumatic for her. And then obviously these relationships with these guys and all of that. And then she also finds this young boy on the beach that she spends time with because she lets him stay at the beach house for a little bit because they can't locate his mother. But she eventually ends up giving the boy to the police, and you can tell that that hurts her feelings as well, because she seems to be really good with children, which is interesting. She seems to be really soft with kids. I guess because of everything that she's been through, she wants to exude that softness towards children, which is definitely one of her better traits. But yeah, so the blow that she can't have kids potentially gets to her even more because of these news. And again, we end season 7 with even more trauma. Right, so I think after I edit it, it will be shorter, but at this point this video is already an hour long, so I promise I won't keep you much longer. We have 3 seasons to discuss. So a lot of Kelly's storyline in season 8 does involve Brandon because they reunited, but again, their relationship, well, they can't be happy, can they? They have to have some sort of drama all of the time. Yet another, I guess it's kind of a double feature. So this happens like at the double premiere of sorts, where Kelly's shot by a gang. After a weirdly timed car robbery, and she actually gets amnesia from that. So Brandon spends a lot of time trying to make her remember, but she's quite, like, she starts remembering quickly because it was temporary. It was just there for some, I would say it was just there to spice things up. Although amnesia storylines, I mean, we're really going right into that telenovela, like we're descending into it. But what happens is that Kelly sort of eventually starts remembering, and she does become her old self again, but she also starts getting bored, and you think her and Brandon just got together and she's already bored to the point where they're trying to spice things up by having public sex in places. And it's again that you see the same pattern that you saw back in season 3 with her and Dylan after he chose her and not Brenda. You see she's with Brandon now, and he did all of this for her to take care of her after she was shot. He's being this amazing partner for her, and she's still unhappy. And it seems what I'm getting at is that in all the 4 seasons, and the show's a long time because some seasons have 30-something episodes of 40 minutes each. It's a long time, and yet it seems that there's not been that much actual development of who Kelly is as a person. She's still repeating the same mistakes, and you could even argue that everything that she experienced actually stunted her development. And at this point in the show, like I said, I keep bringing it back to this argument, to the thesis statement, right? You have to ask yourself, was all of this trauma that the writers put on her just an excuse for them to not have to develop her character organically? Like I said, I'm gearing towards my answer to that. So what else happens in the season for Kelly? She gets sexually harassed by someone that she works with at this clinic, which is actually not included in her traumas list, but you could argue that that's definitely not a pleasant experience. But she actually manages quite cleverly to broadcast him talking about like being nasty to her and being sexually overt with her, and she gets him fired, which is great. But then she also learns that Brandon has been cheating on her with this girl, Emily. And again, more validation shattered, more... It's just a mess. It's a mess. It's, you know, they spend so much time getting them together, and for this to happen, she really has the best luck. Or should I say... I was going to say the worst luck. I started saying best luck, but she really has the best luck at picking out the worst men, if we're really going for a tongue twister. Then Kelly also has this storyline where she actually finds a baby in a dumpster and talks the mother into giving the baby to a loving family because she can't take care of her. Again, we get lots of storylines with Kelly involved with children somehow, which definitely bring a softer side of her, which is nice to see. And then we get one of the dumbest storylines in the whole show where her and Brandon reunite after she forgives him for cheating, and they get engaged and they get married or not. Because during the ceremony, they decide that they actually don't want to go through with it. And then everyone watched their screens like, what the fuck are you on about? And we know the real reason why this was done. Because Jason Priestley wanted to leave the show. But then it's like, oh my god. We went through 4+ seasons of their will they won't they bullshit for this to happen. So they dance at their non-wedding ceremony, reception, whatever, have sex, and he leaves. And Kelly is all alone again. So now we're on to see. So Kelly actually goes into a bit of a business venture, opening a clothing store with Donna, and it's actually an interesting storyline for her, seeing how she manages that. But of course, we get yet another man who is this attorney named Matt, and he's going to be relevant later because we're back onto some Kelly trauma train. So just to confirm, obviously, the way that they wrote Brandon out was that he got a job offer, but it was very shortly after the wedding. So like I said, they ended their romantic relationship on that night, and they just acknowledged, yeah, we're important in each other's lives, but it's just not going to work. And then he leaves, and she actually makes an effort to be on kind of decent terms with Valerie before she leaves the show as well, finding out about her father's sexual abuse towards her and all of that. So again, we're getting actually some growth for Kelly, which is nice to see. And then she's dating this mad guy, and then that gets kind of swooshed because Dylan McKay returns to town for the last season and a half of the show. And then we get more petty rivalry over what is Valerie's replacement now that Tiffany Amber Thiessen left the show, and her name's Gina, and Gina's Donna's cousin. and Kelly competes with her for Dylan's attention while technically still with Matt. So again, just as we're getting somewhere, more regression for a man, which we don't love. A lot of this back and forth, and Kelly's obviously, she still has feelings for Dylan, but she still wants to be with this Matt guy, but she's also fighting for Dylan's affections. Again, messy drama. Then we have a thing where Gina gets nearly raped and Kelly doesn't believe her, which is unfortunate foreshadowing because near the end of season 9, she gets a call from Dylan and she gets asked by him, can you come over? Because I feel like I'm gonna relapse and get high again. And on the way to see him, she gets attacked and raped in an alleyway by a stranger. And when we think about sexual assault, that is the image that we think about. And this is where it gets really frustrating because we literally saw her getting sexually abused in multiple other scenarios. Did we need this? I mean, Jenny's acting was fantastic in the episode afterwards, but was this necessary? Did we seriously need another instance of sexual violence towards Kelly for us to feel bad for her because she's been acting like an idiot most of the season? Was that needed? No. Well, it happens. Rolls over into what is listed as her last big trauma of the show. Thank fuck, because she gets, what happens, I'm trying to phrase it because there's layers to it. So what happens is that her boyfriend Matt, who's an attorney, that's relevant, he ends up unknowingly keeping her rapist out of prison because of an unrelated charge. So I think it was like theft or something, like kind of like a misdemeanor, and obviously Matt doesn't know, but the audience knows that is the man who did it. And Kelly's still struggling and she's leaning on Dylan a lot. And then in the finale of season 9, this piece of shit actually speaks to Matt, and they happen to be in the same building with where the store is, and Matt tells him, my girlfriend runs the store, if you need to get something from there, and they see each other again. And Kelly immediately snaps into that trauma response, which can't blame her, but she does have a gun. And it's very clearly shown that this piece of shit, again, has absolutely no redeeming qualities whatsoever and belongs in the shitter in pieces, because he locks the door, very clearly implying that he's just going to do the whole thing again because he can get away with it because it happened again. Except Kelly has a gun now and she shoots him dead. And honestly, good fucking riddance. But again, it's very traumatizing for her. And to find out that, obviously completely unintentionally, unknowingly, but her boyfriend helped to keep that bastard out of jail. So, the start of season 10, we're in season 10 now, she is facing charges for murder, but she gets off because it is deemed as a justifiable homicide, which, again, duh, hell yeah. I mean, sexual abusers deserve that and more, have their balls crushed or something, and I'm not sorry for saying that. So it is, again, a lot of processing, and it takes some time. And there's even the scene in episode 6 of season 10 where her rapist's parents tell her that it's okay, we forgive you for killing our son because of what he did to you. And I mean, hearing that must be a huge weight off your shoulders. Can't imagine. So then, once that is dealt with, we slip back into yet another love triangle between Kelly, Matt, Dylan, and I mean, at this point, it's like, does anyone have any doubts who Kelly's gonna end up with? I mean, she's not gonna end up with some rando who was introduced halfway through season 9, or whenever it was. she is going to end up with one of her main love interests on the show. But you have that whole back and forth where she accepts Matt's proposal because she doesn't want to be alone, and Dylan doesn't seem to be ready to commit, which again is like, on the one hand, after everything she's been through, I get her not wanting to be by herself, but at the same time, girl, you can handle literally anything. You could probably have a nuke fall on you and it would just rub off of you like some rubble. And you don't need a man to survive, trust me. And Matt actually ends up cheating on her. Again, she's been cheated on so many times. And the show basically ends with her dumping Matt and realizing that, yeah, she wants to be with Dylan, and they end up reuniting. And I wasn't gonna mention her in the spin-off, but just to be super quick, Kelly works at the West Beverly High as a guidance counselor, which is interesting. I would say an interesting choice, but kind of fitting as well. And obviously she definitely is more of a background character once again, because it's about the new kids, right? And like I said, I'm just going to keep my thoughts super brief. I think that I'm not necessarily saying that they're two completely different characters in the show, because we do have these storylines of her friendship with Brenda. We have the storylines of her dealing with her mom and her being neglectful towards Silver. We have her and Dylan. Luke Perry never appears, but he was mentioned a fair few times, and you have these relationships and whatnot. So she's still doing things, she's still there, and it feels connected, but at the same time, I really think that while the show does try to convey who Kelly is, or rather who she was, I don't think that you would understand the full picture of Kelly's character and who she is as a person without seeing the original show, because the version of her that appeared is definitely more subdued and more mellowed out than what she was like in the show. And of course you could argue, the original show, I mean, obviously, and you could argue that that is because, well, she grew up. She's now a mom. She had time to reflect and grow up and deal with her problems. But at the same time, we have to remember, and based on everything that I laid out, that even up until the very last season of the original show, she still had the same problems, and she kept repeating the same patterns of behavior. And obviously the growth that she had to become the person that she's in the reboot, sequel, whatever, we don't see that on screen. So naturally it feels a bit disjointed. But again, obviously it doesn't mean that if you watch the reboot only and you were intrigued by Kelly's character that you have to watch the original or you're missing out. No, this is who she is, but it's definitely a bit jumping to who she is now, and we don't actually see her get there from the original, and she is a very different character. And my thesis statement, I think that I was very clear the whole time, and I said I would be, because the way that I see it, the way that the show was written and the way that they went into the telenovelic aspects of it and the way that everything was laid out, well, it was kind of to be expected that they were going to throw things around for dramatic value, but also let's not forget that at the end of the day, drama and entertainment are keeping the viewers in for the short term. They're getting the rankings in and the viewings in and all of those things that the network cares about. However, when you look at the character development, you look at all these things that happen and you just see this stunted personality that goes through so much that it's impossible for it to go any other way than just be jaded and broken and pissed off about their experiences. And the times where you actually see Kelly develop and grow into a person that is more pleasant to be around is great, but then something immediately happens to just push her back to say, oh no, you need to be sad and miserable and frustrated about something. And that definitely laid out a precedent that you could argue is unfortunate when it comes to other female characters. A few that I mentioned in the very beginning, There's definitely some more that I'm missing out, but I will definitely talk about all of the girls I mentioned at some point, eventually, and more. So, let me know what you think about this. If you agree or disagree, share your opinions about Kelly, share your opinions about her relationships, what you felt about her character in the original or the reboot, and I hope to see you next time.